Good morning. Welcome to our Bible study this morning. We're in the middle of a series on familiarizing ourselves with the Bible. Today we're going to be looking at the New Testament, the books that the New Testament contains, and what information we can get from each of those New Testament books. So we're going to be looking at a general overview of the New Testament in our series this morning. During the series, I'll be using a diagram of the New Testament books with some information about those books. If you would like a copy of that worksheet, you're very welcome to get it. You can go to my blog. It's entitled Settled in Heaven, that's all one word, .wordpress.com. Go to the blog and look for the lessons entitled Familiarizing Ourselves with the Bible. In the context of those lessons, you'll have a set of instructions to follow to be able to download the Excel or the PDF file if you would like a copy of the worksheet that I'm using in this lesson this morning. So again, you're welcome to it. It's free of charge. Just go to my blog and it's easily downloaded. Okay, this morning we are beginning to look at the New Testament, and we're trying to familiarize ourselves with the Bible. Okay, we're now ready to begin our study of the New Testament books. As you can see in your diagram, the New Testament is divided up into 5 different parts, just like the Old Testament was. The New Testament, if you remember, is made up of 27 books. These are the 5 divisions of the New Testament. You have the Gospels, one book of church history. Then you have the Pauline epistles. Let me just say this. Epistle is simply a personal letter. So Pauline epistles were simply personal letters that Paul wrote to various people and various churches. That's what the Pauline epistles are. The general epistles. Those are personal letters that were written by a variety of different people. And finally, the prophetical book of Revelation. That was written by the Apostle John, and we'll get into all this in just a minute. But those are the 5 different basic divisions of the New Testament. You have 27 books in the New Testament. They're divided into those 5 different divisions. Okay, the first thing that we have, the first division, is made up of 4 books. The division is described as the Gospels. Those books include Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. If you notice, each one of those books is named after its author. So, for example, the book of Matthew was written by Matthew, etc. We have one book that covers church history. That's the book called the Book of Acts. The man who wrote the book of Acts, most people believe, was Luke, the same man that wrote the Gospel of Luke. So you can see how Luke wrote 2 different books, the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts. Okay, the Pauline epistles. Now please, once again, keep in mind, these are all personal letters that were written by the Apostle Paul. The only question to that is the last one when we get down to the book of Hebrews. There's a question who wrote that, but I believe it was Paul. That's why I put it in this section. But there is some question as to who wrote Hebrews. But we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, these are the different Pauline epistles. In other words, these are the different personal letters written by the Apostle Paul. You have Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, and Philemon. All of those were personal letters that Paul wrote to each of those groups that are named in the title of the book. The last book in this group is the book of Hebrews. Once again, I believe that Paul wrote it. Some people believe that perhaps Luke wrote it, or Barnabas, or even Apollos, but I do believe it was Paul. Now, let's go back and look at these very quickly. From Romans through 2nd Thessalonians, all of those books were written to churches. Like, for example, the book of Romans was written to the Lord's church in Rome. 1st and 2nd Corinthians were written to the church that was at Corinth. Galatians was written to the church at Galatia. Ephesians was written to the church at Ephesus. Philippians was written to the church at Philippi. Colossians was written to the church at Colossae. 1st and 2nd Thessalonians was written to the church at Thessalonica. And then down at the last one, Hebrews, was written to Jewish believers that have been scattered among the Gentile nations. So Romans through 2nd Thessalonians were written to the Lord's churches in those cities. Hebrews was written to Jews that have been scattered. Our last group of 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, and Philemon, those were letters that Paul wrote to individuals. He wrote to a man named Timothy in 1st and 2nd Timothy. He wrote to Titus in the book of Titus, and then obviously he wrote to Philemon in the book of Philemon. Okay, so you have most of Paul's writings are to local churches. You have one that was written just to Jews in general, Christian Jews in general that had been scattered, and Timothy's, Titus, and Philemon were written to individuals. Okay, under the general epistles, here we find, 7 different books. They're all named after their author. The book of James, written by James. 1st and 2nd Peter were written by the Apostle Peter. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John was written by the Apostle John. And finally, Jude. That was written by Jude. The last division in the New Testament is the prophetical books division. There's one book in that division. It's the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation was written by the Apostle John. So there you can see a basic breakdown of the different New Testament books in the Bible and who wrote them. Now let me just remind you very quickly, if you would like more information on the authors of each of these books, I have a blog lesson entitled Becoming Familiar with the Bible, part number 2, that talks about the different authors of the books of the Bible and gives you much more detail as far as what they did for a living and other information about them. So if you'd like more information about each of these authors individually, please go to my blog. You can find that at settledinheaven.wordpress.com. There you can read more about these authors and what they did for a living before the Lord called them, and what they did then after the Lord called them. Also, let me remind you, the diagram that you see on the screen now is part of a worksheet that I did that contains most of the information I'm covering in this series. You're more than welcome to download a copy of that worksheet. I have it on my blog in either Excel or PDF form. So you're welcome to download whichever one you would like, either the Excel or the PDA. Let me just say, if you download the Excel form, you'll be able to sort the different columns and do a lot of really good things with Excel. I enjoy using Excel for that very reason. Like, for example, if you want to see the books of the Bible in alphabetical order, the Excel version you'll be able to download, and you'll be able to sort by name, and it'll put all of the names of the books in order so you can see them alphabetically, for example. There's a lot of different things you can do with the Excel version you cannot do with the PDF version. But in either case, I've got both versions out there on my blog. If you would like a copy of that worksheet, you're welcome to download it. It's free for nothing. Just find any one of the 4 lessons on becoming familiar with the Bible. And in the course of those lessons, you'll find instructions on how to download the Excel or the PDF file, whichever you choose. But again, you're welcome to download it and use it in any way that would be helpful to you. It gives you all of the information plus some that we'll be covering in this series on becoming familiar with the Bible. Once again, I want to thank you for spending time with us. In the next part of our series, we'll be looking at the New Testament books and some of the events that we read about in the New Testament books of the Bible. Thank you very much.